Today, there are approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. This past week, a bipartisan group of 8 senators came together to present a plan for immigration reform. For years, Democrats have been calling for immigration reform, but Republicans have resisted. However, in light of the recent electoral defeat of Republicans, they are now willing to compromise and come together for a new plan to address immigration reform. Joining me today is Manuela Londono from the Coalition for Immigrant Rights from University of Chicago and Jorge Sanchez from Mexicanas Chicago. So the question is, what do you make of what has been outlined? And while it's very broad, just the notion that something might be accomplished in terms of immigration reform. Let's start over here.
So the Senate bill was it's a bipartisan bill, but there are a lot of issues with it. It's really similar to a lot of the bills that we've seen in past years, and they still don't address the core of the immigration issue right now.
And what do you identify as the core that's not being addressed?
Well, definitely, it definitely has to go back to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, because there's such a limited amount of visas that are being offered. This Senate bill isn't addressing that issue. So when Marco Rubio, for example, said that undocumented immigrants have to get to the back of the line, there's a really big problem with that, because technically there are various lines for immigration visas, and usually it starts off with like 2. There's family sponsored and employment sponsored. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have family or employment, you could then go into the lottery of 55,000 immigration visas that are offered annually. But the problem that we see here is that a lot of the countries where these immigrants are coming from, a lot of them cap their visas very quickly because they're only allowed 7%. Mm-hmm. And definitely countries, especially in Latin America, such as Mexico, they max out of those visas very quickly.
Right. So I'm going to go over here now. Do you think, Jorge, that there should be just amnesty, though, granted for everyone that's currently in the United States illegally?
Yeah, I do think so, and I think that'd be the fact that we're talking about an immigration reform with a path to citizenship. I think it's a huge step forward. As Manuela addressed, there's still a lot of things and the core of the immigration reform needs to be.
So we're making, you're saying there's positive steps being made forward, right, and that people should be granted amnesty. But the question is, will Americans really accept amnesty? We know that the House is open, right, to immigration reform. But what we're seeing is in the Senate, that the Senate's really open, right, to immigration reform. But the House, there's much more conservative members from districts where people are really anti-immigration, really not prone to wanting to let new people and more people into this country. And you're actually sort of seeing a split in the Republican Party, right? So you have some people like Karl Rove applauding this effort by Republicans to reach out and let more immigrants in. But you're also seeing places like the National Review, which is a conservative publication, saying, for example, take away the Spanish surname and the Latinos look like a good deal, like many other Democratic constituencies. Low-income households headed by single mothers and dependent upon some form of welfare are not looking for excuses to join forces with Paul Ryan and Pat Toomey. So obviously they're very opposed to this. Why, for example, should Republicans want to embrace Latinos and want more immigrants coming to this country from all around the world?
The Latino vote is becoming a very large and increasing number of people. And especially for the next election, there's going to be more and more Latinos. So they definitely have to get that vote. And also, in terms of an economic standpoint, it's immigrants are an economic asset. There's a lot of immigrants coming from China, India, even Latin America that are full of viable resources that this country can use.
Okay, but Jorge, do you agree with their description, the National Review's description of Latino immigrants, where they say that these people are a typical Democratic constituency that are low-income households? Clearly they don't seem to value Latinos. Why do you think that's such a hard thing for Republicans to realize, that immigrants are something that we should value in this country?
Well, I think that's a very narrow view of what immigrants bring to the United States. Obama addressed this matter on his speech on Wednesday. He said that, I mean, it's not only the people that are already living here. It's the people, for instance, college students, as myself. We would have an easier way of getting a citizenship if we decide to stay here after we study college.
And is that something that you want to do, or that people in your group want to do, that you represent?
I don't know about myself, but I know a lot of people studying college here that would be interested in that. And I think, I mean, because though this is a country of immigrants, mm-hmm. right? And it's important to
allow more people to
right,
maybe come into
to allow
this
more
country.
People and not to focus the debate on Americans versus immigrants. Okay, that's not it.
So, Manuela, we're talking about, you brought up, for example, the percentage of people that voted for the Democrats versus the Republicans, Obama winning over 70% of Latinos versus the Republicans who only won around 20%, which is the lowest number they've won since 1996 of the Latino vote. Talk to me about how this affects students at University of Chicago and how they perceive the Republican Party.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So how do people at University of Chicago perceive the Republicans' anti-immigration stance? Like, is that appealing? Like, how do they perceive that?
I mean, we think it's going to hurt the Republican Party in the long run because the Latino population is increasing every single year in the States, and there's also going to be more and more Latino students on campus. And if we feel that we're being targeted by the Republican Party, then of course we're going to vote Democratic.
Mm-hmm. And so just finally tell me, what is your group doing to try to push for more immigration reform? Like how as college students can something be accomplished, can something be done to really encourage policymakers to take a serious look at encouraging more immigration to the United States?
So the University of Chicago Coalition for Immigrant Rights, or rather USIR, we definitely fight for a lot of student issues on campus, especially with immigrant issues or undocumented issues. We've been working alongside the administration to make sure that this campus is friendly and is a supportive space for undocumented students. We have had undocumented students in the past, and we want to make sure that undocumented students, especially in high school, know that they can apply to the University of Chicago and that they will find support here.
Okay, and Jorge, can you tell me what exactly Mexicanos and Chicago is doing to help those that have immigrated from Mexico and attend University of Chicago?
Well, we are a small nuclei of Mexican students, mm-hmm. and we're just another resource for Mexican students that happen to be here, and we try and make events around Mexican culture.
And provide a sense of community maybe
right.
that people might not have if this is their first time in this country.
That's right.
Okay, I want to thank you both for joining me today, and we look forward to talking to you as these plans develop further along. Thanks so much.
Thank you.